the best of both, with spectacular views over the city mall and wind protection in the kloof.
On its terrace. On your right, clouds permitting, is the unmistakable sight of Table Mountain, one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. In the shadow of the majestic mountain, history is written. From the Khoisan tribes to the Portuguese explorers who scaled the mountain in 1503, from strolling colonial ladies in the 1800s to record-breaking abseiling daredevils, the mountain is an iconic beacon and becomes an intensely personal symbol to each one who has the privilege of seeing her. For sailors, she is a sign that relief and refuge are at hand. For visitors, she becomes the cover photo on their Facebook pages. For locals, she is a reminder that a humble grounding is the perfect platform for extraordinariness. Prime Minister Jan Smuts, a farm boy turned field marshal who led South Africa during the World Wars and co-founded the League of Nations, spent a lot of time on the mountain, formulating his ideas on holistic living. Traveling going from the city to Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens over Constantia Neck, where you can hop off and join our wine tour to Constantia. It then takes you past Hout Bay Harbour and back into the city along the Atlantic seaboard. There are 3 attractions for you to explore before we reach Mariner's Wharf at Hout Bay Harbour. Our first drop-off point is the world-famous Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens, rated the 7th greatest garden in the world. Our second drop-off point is Constantia Neck, where you can change buses and join our wine tour to visit the oldest wine farm in South Africa. Our third drop-off point is the unique World of Birds and Monkey Jungle, with over 3,000 African birds and 400 small animals on show. For children, there's an opportunity to interact with some of the smaller monkeys. Your Blue Route bus tickets entitles you to a discount here. On our left, behind these apartments, are the empty fields of District 6. The strange phenomenon of open land so close to the city is a result of the forced removal and demolition of an entire community during apartheid. To make way for a whites-only city, over 60,000 colored people living in one of the Cape's oldest quarters were forcibly relocated to ghettos on the Cape Flats during the 1960s and 1970s. District 6 was one of the few places where people of all races lived together in relative harmony. It was a poor, working-class neighborhood where gangsters met on the famous 7 steps, but by all accounts, it was also a place where some of the greatest jazz was heard in smoky clubs and where great poets, writers and artists felt truly at home.
Hugging the shoreline as we drive along are the bulky structures that make up Cape Town's busy harbour. Until the completion of the Suez Canal in 1869, Cape Town was the major port for ships sailing around Africa to the east. Today, the harbour is used mostly for fishing and tourism, and it's a popular stopover for luxury ocean liners. To the right of the harbour, we can see a large container depot. The Western Cape is a major exporter of fresh fruit and fine wines. Across the bay are the suburbs of Milnerton and Blobergstrand, and further along the bay, just out of sight, is Africa's only nuclear power station, Coburg. A little inland, rising out above the Cape Flats, is the Tygerberg. No, there are no tigers in Africa. The early Dutch settlers used to call leopards spotted tigers, and it is said that, seen from afar, the vegetation on the hill made it look like it had spots on it, just like a leopard. There are still leopards high on the mountains you can see on the far horizon, known as the Hottentots Holland Mountains. If you look on your right, you should see Devil's Peak. Devil's Peak was originally called the Wind Mountain, only changing its name due to a legend in which an notorious old pirate called Van Hunks unwittingly challenged the devil to a smoking contest. They puffed away on a potent mixture of rum-soaked tobacco for days on end, causing a great swirling cloud to form, covering Table Mountain. This summertime phenomenon is known locally as the tablecloth. In the winter months, the legend continues. Van Hunks, who suffers from rheumatism, cannot climb the mountain. So, although the entire mountain often disappears into the clouds, there is no tablecloth.
is rather temperamental, and not even locals can pinpoint exactly what the mood will be. Sometimes on this side of Table Mountain, it can be cloudy and chilly with an icy wind sweeping down and forcing you to button up or put on a jersey. But as soon as you travel around the mountain and hit the beaches of Camps Bay and Clifton, the sun is probably shining, and jerseys and jackets make way for sunscreen, shorts and sundresses. Soon we will be passing a huge medical complex to our left. This is the Groote Hospital, made famous by Dr. Christian Barnard, who performed the world's first human heart transplant here in 1967. It is also the home of the Heart of Cape Town Museum, featuring life-sized wax replicas in the actual theatre where the operation took place. The museum offers city sightseeing passengers a complimentary shuttle bus that will collect you from and return you to your hotel. For details and bookings, please see your tour brochure. Pine trees are not indigenous to the Cape, and over the last 30 years, most of the pine trees on the slopes of Table Mountain have been cut down. These beautiful old stone pines on our right are amongst the few remaining. Invasive alien trees like the Australian Port Jackson, the blue gum and the black wattle have destroyed large sections of a concerted effort is being made by the National Parks Authority, working with the Department of Forestry to rehabilitate our indigenous vegetation, or fynbos as it is called. You will hear more of fynbos later on the tour. The area on your right is wildlife enclosure, and if you're lucky you might see zebra, eland or wildebeest below the pines. This enclosure began as a private zoo and was once home to the now extinct quagga. The quagga lived in the Karoo and southern Free State and looked like a strange zebra. It was only striped on the front half of its body, with the back half being a creamy light brown color. In 1987, selective breeding with certain zebras was begun to try to bring back the quagga, and more than 60 animals have been bred and distributed to different sites around Cape Town, including the slopes of Table Mountain. So keep your eyes open.
You have to taste the culture to understand it. Travel writer Deborah Cater once said. We couldn't agree more. South Africa is a country with a rich cultural heritage, and food plays a big role in all cultures. Home to many cultures with lots of different cuisines and dishes, the one common element around South African tables is that we're big on sharing. Meals are mostly served family style at home, and potlucks are common at large family gatherings. Whilst on holiday in our city, make sure you try some Cape Malay cuisine, including a cinnamon cardamom mixed spice flavored koeksister, a hertsogie, which is a traditional biscuit filled with jam and coconut, or a meat and vegetable stew called a breedy. You may also hear locals talking about a bunny chow, a hollowed out loaf of bread filled with curry, which has been around since the 1940s, or the infamous Gatsby, a long sandwich filled with a number of ingredients, usually including several kinds of meat and hot chips. Finally, do not leave Cape Town without experiencing a braai. You have to say it like that, which literally translates to barbecue, or better still, a shisanyama, which has its roots in South Africa's townships. Shisanyama is a Zulu word literally meaning burned meat, which refers to the way the meat is cooked over hot coals.
On either side of us lies the campus of the University of Cape Town, the oldest place of higher education in southern Africa. The ivy-clad university is internationally renowned for its medical school, music college, and arts and science faculties. Professor J.M. Coetzee, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2003, wrote most of his award-winning novels about South Africa while teaching on the campus. The campus was the scene of lively protests during the height of apartheid resistance in the 80s, Anti-apartheid demonstrations occasionally spilled over onto the freeway you're driving on. Hidden deep in the foliage on the left-hand side of the road is the mansion Pasture, which means big barn. Although it became home to the Prime Minister of South Africa, that was how it started out, as a barn for the Dutch East India Company. It eventually became a home, changing hands many times before being bought by Rhodes. In his will, he bequeathed to be used as the home of the Prime Minister. Pasture remained the home of the head of state until Nelson Mandela declared that he did not wish to live in a museum. Once upon a time, Cecil John Rhodes owned just about all the land around here. He was a passionate imperialist who dreamed of colonizing Africa from the Cape to Cairo. He brought almost 1 million square miles of the continent under British control. Rhodes has been condemned as a ruthless imperialist and admired as a visionary. He arrived in South Africa as a sickly teenager in 1870 and headed up to the Kimberley Diamond Fields, where he won fame and fortune. Later on, he used his money and his influential friends to carve out a brand new country, which his disciples named Rhodesia, which nearly a century later, Robert Mugabe renamed Zimbabwe. His plans for expanding the British Empire in Africa included a highway running north from Cape Town right up to Cairo. He died at Rhodes Cottage in Muizenberg in 1902 at the age of 49.
As in every country with a colonial past, the issue of renaming streets, towns, cities, and the removal of statues form a heated debate. The question is, when does a country's history start? Is it when the colonials arrive, or does it start when the last remnant of the past is removed or renamed? Winston Churchill said that history is written by the victors, and that logic has been the legacy of our Dutch and British imperialist past. Here in Cape Town, we have a myriad of statues commemorating figures from our 300-odd years of history since the arrival of the first Dutch settlers. We had a history before that, a long history which is virtually ignored. But we know very little about those chapters as it was not documented sufficiently. We have a strong oral and storytelling tradition, and our hope is that the younger generation will keep the stories of forgotten heroes and true tales alive. On your right is Newlands Forest. Whether it's jogging, walking, mountain biking, or just picnicking under the pine trees, this is a favourite spot for Cape Townians to visit their beloved mountain. Unfortunately, almost every year during our hot summer months, veld fires rage. The aggressive southeasterly wind fans the flames to reach up to 15 meters. So hidden away near here in the forest is a unique mountain fire station that is staffed by volunteers on standby, as well as 3 helicopters to run water dumps. Putting out fires is a most dangerous operation, with the helicopter pilots maneuvering through treacherous winds, smoke, high trees, and the mountain being only a mere couple of meters away.
Traffic intersections in South Africa's cities are like a marketplace on the move. Hawkers weave between cars and lanes, selling the oddest assortment of things to captive drivers. If the traffic lights are red, a roadside seller will try to sell you a bright-bearded gecko, a pink flamingo, a plastic chicken, or a wooden giraffe. Others sell clothes hangers, blow-up plastic toys, refuse bags, and car sunshades. Magazine vendors sell the big issue, the global magazine of the homeless. Some of these mobile salesmen are drawn from dusty villages in the Eastern Cape by dreams of bright lights, education, Others have trekked thousands of kilometers to escape civil wars or flee an economy in free fall.
On the 5th of December 2013.
Hello guys, I'm following your comments. Yes, Tese takapfika my earphones. We are listening to the history. We are all listening. All our mothers, they are putting on my earphones.
Time we fall. If one word were to summarize his legacy,